Well, this is part four, getting down to pretty much the finishing details of putting this table together. I want to do finish sanding for sure, but I need to put an edge along the tabletop, and it's going to be a fairly large round over because I want this to be a pretty easy table to sit at and just be comfortable. Put your arms up and not have any sharp corners digging into your arms. And then everything needs to be colored. And I want to show you how I've gone and decided on the color, and so you can watch me apply that. And then it's got to have some good finish on it. And it's a question of, is it going to be polyacrylic or is it going to be polyurethane? And I haven't quite come to that decision yet. So we'll see how it all works out, and I appreciate you coming in for part four. So I've decided that I do not want absolute square corners, and that's about the radius that I want to take each of the four corners down to. And that's not the kind of thing that you just lift up and put on your disc sander. So I've made up this template, and I'm going to use my pattern bit on the corners. But first I'm going to take most of that corner off with my jigsaw so I don't bog down the router too much. As I was chatting with the Rockler store manager recently, as I was in buying this router bit, brought up an issue that he has all of the time. He has recognized that this is an issue, and he brings it up with anybody who comes in to buy an oversized router bit. And by oversized, I mean anything larger than 1 inch in diameter. And this particular router bit is what I'm going to use to take the edge down on the top of my table, and it's going to give it a 5/8 inch radius, which I'm really looking forward to having. But that means that this router bit is actually 1 3/4 inches in diameter, and it is highly recommended that you do not put this into just any old standard 22 to 27,000 RPM router. There are numerous places that you can go on the internet to find out recommended speeds, router speeds, for larger diameter router bits. And I'm going to cut this at 15,000 RPM, but I could probably do it safely at 16 or 16,500 RPM. But there's no way that running it at 23,500 RPM is considered safe. So the upshot of this, trying not to belabor a safety issue that I'm pretty concerned about, is that if you're going to use router bits that are larger than 1 inch in diameter, you must have a router that is speed adjustable. And yeah, you can say, I'll get away with it this time, but it's not a good idea at all. So please, if you're going to use large panel bits or edge rounding bits, as I do, you have to use the proper equipment. Please do it. this is the edge that I've ended up with. It was using a 5/8 inch round over bit because I wanted this to be really nice and large rounded over. I've only just taken sandpaper to the bottom edge and just taken the edge off there. But it took me 3 passes to make that round over because I didn't want any tear out and I wanted it to be really smooth, and by and large that's exactly how it worked out for me. And you can see that I'm getting into some of the final sanding. What I'm attempting to do here is to make a sanding block that will fit the curvature of the edge of the table that I just put on. And although this isn't a perfect fit, it's really, really close. So what I'm going to do is push this Forstner bit through this block of wood and then cut it down so that it's only showing a quarter round that I can put some sandpaper into and hopefully do a pretty good job on that edge, although that was an extremely clean router run through there, so I don't think I'm going to have to really work all that hard on it. Well, I would say that worked out pretty well. I didn't think I would get quite that deep on there. And if I can put that on the saw and cut these down to quarter rounds, I think I'll do all right. So this is what I ended up with. Just what I was hoping for. Well, in part 3, you saw me actually put together the raw table. I screwed it all together because I wanted to see how it looked. And I was quite satisfied seeing it in the basement. I thought the design characteristics looked really nice. I brought my wife down to take a look at it and give it a quick evaluation and show off my handiwork. And in the course of doing that, she decided to tell me that the table was too high. Now, what's important here to note is that I spend very little time sitting at the table. I eat my breakfast and lunch and my dinners there. But I don't spend any extra time there to speak of. However, my wife is very, very comfortable at the table. She prefers to watch TV from there, and she will spend hours sitting reading books or doing crossword puzzles there. So the height of the table is very important to me because it's important to her. Now, in the course of thinking about this, I designed this table to be 30 inches tall, which I thought was a very standard modern height for a table. It wasn't 200 or 300 years ago, but I designed my existing kitchen table at the time when I had babies in the house. My babies are no longer babies, and they're sitting at normal sized tables, to be sure. But in fact, that table is only 28.5 inches tall, and that's what she's used to. And I'm going to listen to that. That means I have to do something about the height of the table. And the best that I can come up with is to cut off 1 inch from the foot of the legs. I don't believe that this is going to actually detract much from the design of the legs. It's going to come within a 1/2 inch of what she's used to. She's agreed that a 1/2 inch is probably something that she'll acclimate to within moments. So this next part is adjusting the height of the legs and the aggravation of how to do that now that the legs are not square blanks anymore. So here's the leg and the jig I'm going to use for cutting it. And you can see that the problem here is I want a very flat cut down at the bottom, but I've got a taper in this leg, so my problem is to make this perfectly parallel to the table when that portion is pushed down, so that when I run it through the saw, it's going to make a very, very square cut, and it's not going to have an angle. The other thing that I'm concerned about is that all of the legs get cut to the same length. So that stop up there will set each leg at the right length, and then I'll be able to push it through the saw. One of the solutions that I've got here for making this into the right position is having made these wedges. And there's only about 2 degrees on those wedges, but let me show you how well they're fitting. Okay, this is the top wedge, and the bottom wedge is just the same, but when I put the head of this leg up against the back, it's perfectly parallel, and then this comes down and will be held in exactly the right location. And of course I'll have these clamped onto the jig so that there won't be any movement when it comes through. And this bottom one is holding it up, and this one is pushing it out. And I hope this works. And the value of having made a prototype of this leg is surfacing once more, that I don't have to experiment on one of my keeper legs. So I'm going to send this through and just make sure that everything's working out right. Well, just a little bit higher with the saw blade, and we're in. So in this little experiment, I'm measuring the depth of the wood in quadrants along here, and I'm getting discrepancies that are within 10,000ths of an inch. So I would say that my jig worked out, and probably what's going to be my downfall are uneven floors. So today's chemistry experiment is trying to make that color stain slightly darker. Now I've got my chairs in, and it's a very difficult color to try and match up because they're using a color scheme that the Amish use in Ohio, and it doesn't seem to have any suppliers that I can find, and there's no actual comparisons where they would say that this number scheme that they use actually corresponds with some specific color of a manufacturer like Minwax. So what I've got are some very nice looking chairs, and it's almost that color, which is just a straight red oak Minwax stain, but it's not quite dark enough. So what I'm in the process of doing now is trying to see if I can find a formulation where I can darken up the red oak by using an espresso, which is considerably darker. So I have 2 ounces of red oak stain in my measuring cup, and what I'm going to do is put first 1/8 of a teaspoon of the espresso into this stain, and then I'm going to take out and stain that piece of my oak, and then I'm going to take another 1/8 of a teaspoon and put it in, and I'm going to do that across the way here in 4 steps. And hopefully one of those is going to hit it just right. If I miss it, then I'm going to have to repeat the experiment. So I think I'm just about ready to put my first teaspoon in here. Mix that up all nice. After, of course, I've gone and spilled so much of the red oak stain, trying to pour it out of these little cans. They don't want to pour out very well under that circumstance. So these are very, very similar, but at least we made a decision. So the formulation to try and mimic Ohio Certified Stains number 226, which is coffee, they call it, is going to be this formulation, which is Minwax Red Oak with 1 teaspoon of espresso, that's Minwax color espresso, per 2 ounces of red oak stain. Hope it works out. So after I did my titration test, and I really liked the color on the small batch, I made up a big batch, and I'm pretty sure it's easy to see here how that worked out. It was it was one of the usual things that happens during scale up when you're in development, that things just don't go the way they did in a small batch. So it took me a couple more days to find the color again in the big batch, which was about twice as much of the darker stain than we originally thought. But we're on the way now. So after several days of trying to find the right color, I think we finally happened on it. So I'm going to start with a piece of wood that should never be seen under normal circumstance, which is the middle brace for the apron. So it should be totally invisible. But I think I mentioned already, this is a combination of Minwax Red Oak as the base and espresso as the darkener. My plan is to let this sit on the wood for 15 minutes or so, something on the order of 12 to 18. And then wipe down the excess and let it dry overnight. Okay, it's been 15 minutes. We've got some that looks like it's fairly dry and some that looks like it's still pretty wet. And what I'm doing now is putting this subassembly together at this point prior to applying any protective finish on it, simply because I wanted to put glue on this joint, and I didn't want to have to worry about getting polyurethane over the areas that I wanted to apply glue. Well, it's solidly together now, but it was pretty fiddly work. Although I had all of the corners nicely marked, what I hadn't had marked was whether or not they were upside down. And I did have one or two that were in the wrong position, so I just had to unscrew them and plug them back in, just flipped over. And what made it even fiddlier was in my initial assembly, I had actually misplaced that. This board was up about 1/16 of an inch. So I actually had to re-drill the pilot holes so that so that these two surfaces are actually on the same plane, which they are now. And I just didn't catch that on the video. So. Well, this is it. I've done all of the undercarriage, and I'm very pleased with how the stain has gone on. So now the money side is coming up, and I'm in full confidence mode that the top is going to look great. I'm calling that a home run. I matched up the chairs, I think, pretty nicely. So I've decided on polyurethane, and the way I always put large pieces of wood together in my furniture, I try to finish it on the underside the same as I finish it on the top side, in an effort to avoid any sort of seasonal humidity-induced cupping that might happen, because I want the water penetration, the atmospheric water penetration into the wood, to be the same on the underside as well as the upper side. Theoretically, that will just expand it sideways and avoid any cupping things. So, I'm not going to hurt you with a whole lot of painting scene, but this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start off with the big pieces because I have a brand fresh can of polyurethane, and then I'm going to start attacking the legs, and I think I might put that on with a cloth as opposed to a paintbrush. And I have a nice soft brush here to go on because I want some pretty thick coverage on the top. Not so much on the undercarriage, but I do want it to be fairly bulletproof and actually quite flat. I want to make sure that all the pores in the wood are plugged, filled, and that it's got a good writing surface, because my wife writes quite frequently at the table. So I'd like it to be a good writing surface. Oh my, I do like the way that grain is showing up under the polyurethane. Well, we're getting down near the end here. So what I'm doing is putting the clips in. That's going to hold the apron and the top together. And then this gets walked upstairs, and I will put the legs on up there and turn it right side up. Well, there it is, and you've seen it in pictures, and it finally made it upstairs, bad knees notwithstanding. You may have guessed or observed that I have a little trouble letting go of major projects. There's always something that I want to make better, and clearly from the last time I spoke on a video, which was only a week ago, I said I was going to put the fourth and last coat of polyurethane on the table, and it ended up with a fifth coat and then a little wax on it besides. And that's just how this project went. It had a lot of hiccups and regressions, and it took a lot longer than I thought it was going to, but I must say that I'm quite pleased with it, and my wife is ecstatic. She thinks it's the greatest thing ever. And it sure makes the kitchen area, dining space, look a whole lot nicer than the old one. Glad I did it. Sorry it took quite so long, but you know, that's the story of my woodworking projects. They always take a lot longer than I think they're going to. But I'm still happy with it. Thanks for sticking with it. This is the end of the line for this particular group of videos making this table. And I appreciate it if you've hung on this long. I'm Tom Stevens. Come on back. I'm going to have something more pretty soon.